meeting for June 10th, 2019. Order, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here tonight. Can I go ahead and get a motion to approve the agenda? But before we do that, we have a new addition. We have an item that Stacy handed us. It's going to be known as item 8 Delta. We have to put it on the regular agenda because we have to have the 72 hours prior before we can add it on the consent, and obviously that didn't happen, so it's going to be known as line item 8 Delta. So with that said, can I get an approval for the agenda, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any conversation? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. Presentations. Tonight we have Alyssa from the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, better known as Smith, for a project update presentation.
Hi.
Alyssa, welcome. We're very happy to have you, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Great, thank you. Thank you for giving me some of your time tonight. I'm passing around just a few additional printed materials. I know you guys also got some before the meeting. But really, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for your support in the past. So everything that we talk about tonight is because of contributors such as yourselves. And also, I just want to give an update on what we've been up to in the region, making sure you guys know we're here to support you. And also, we've been good stewards of your dollars in the past. So with that, is everybody familiar with Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation? Yes, perfect. All right. So I'll just give an update sort of on where we're at today. We continue to really strive to make all of our communities vibrant and prosperous in our 20-county region. We do that through 3 main focus areas of early childhood education, entrepreneurship, and community vitality. So all in all, we put about $5 million back into the region each year. We're a small player, but we try to make sure that we are impacting those areas as much as we can. So some examples within each of those program areas. Early childhood education. Within Sueur, we know throughout the entire state we're dealing with an early child care shortage. So what we're doing in that area is we're trying to making sure that we are empowering our child care providers, especially home-based providers, to stay in the field and also helping people get into the field. This is one of the main ways we're trying to tackle this issue. We provide grant dollars to get on the parent-aware rating system, and we also provide training to help them get the credits that they need to continue to be a professional in that field. So if you guys know of anybody who is a child care provider, make sure that they know about Smith. We're actually able to provide grant dollars for them to get one-on-one counseling with First Children's Finance, because many times they don't think of themselves as a business, and so that's helping them get that plan in place. Also, we have other resources as well that could be beneficial. So we also are a grant maker in the area of early childhood education. If you know of any programs that may need a little extra assistance, do send them our way. We actually have 3 different local programs in the Sueur that are receiving free books. They're going to come pick them up next week, actually. So over 700 books are going to be coming to some programs here in your community. And those books, the great thing about them is they're actually meant to go home with children. So it's about building their own libraries, promoting parent-child bonding, and things of that nature. So we're really trying to make sure that every child is ready to learn when they enter kindergarten, in the hopes that they will become a valued member of our workforce in years to come. So that's what we're doing with early childhood education. Within entrepreneurship also, Sueur is one of our pilot communities for our REV program, Rural Entrepreneurial Ventures. You guys call yours LIFE, I believe. And your EDA is really functioning as that team. This is a great program. You guys probably get updates regularly from Sam, but it's really about growing your own entrepreneurs, supporting those that are here to help them reach new levels. A lot of times the traditional economic development model is that we want to attract businesses, bring more into our community, but we overlook what are the needs that our current entrepreneurs have? How can we assist them to be more successful? So that program, we're a 1.5 years into it, and honestly we're blown away with the results that we've seen so far, so it's really exciting, and thank you for allowing Sam to devote some of her time to this program. I'm really excited to see what happens here as we wrap up in year 3. But of course, we're not going to leave you then. We're going to continue supporting the program, but we're more intensely supporting for that pilot session of 3 years. We also continue to be a lender. So if you guys know of anybody who needs additional assistance, even if we're a small portion of a package for a business to expand or start, we're able to provide one-on-one technical assistance, which is a really great attribute. Probably aware that typically the national standard is 8 out of 10 businesses fail in their first year of starting out. Our statistics are 9 out of 10 succeed. And we think that's because we're able to match our services to the needs of the entrepreneur. Whether we can do it or not, we can find an expert who's going to know what they need. Because you only know what you know. That's the bottom line. So we want to make sure that everybody has the support that they need to be successful. So our last area of focus is community vitality. I'm throwing a lot of information at you guys. Sorry, this is the last area. But in that area, we're really focused on keeping philanthropic dollars local. And one of the ways we do that is by assisting community foundations, such as your local Sueur Community Foundation. They were off the map for a little bit there, but they just held their first leadership event for a couple of years. They took a little hiatus, but they held that a couple months ago. They had a great turnout. They raised a lot of dollars. They just received a paint grant from Smith to work on a community mural in your town. I think the city is actually helping act as the host for that project. But so that's just another way that we're here to assist your community. As you guys well know, city government can only go so far, and this is a way that we're trying to help your community members be engaged. What do they think is important? What do they want to see in their community? And we're simply there as that backbone structure to allow them to raise the dollars to make the change that they want to see. So, that's a very quick overview. Do you guys have any questions on what we've been doing, how we could help your community? Yeah.
If I could, you just mentioned that paint grant.
Yes.
We haven't received word that they received it or not, so you're saying that they did receive it?
Yeah, by the way, they received it today. They received an email notification, so congratulations.
Great. And if City Council, if you guys aren't aware of it, they're looking at doing a mural, a community organization. I think it's the Sueur Community Foundation is looking to do a mural on that property that Scott Churchill owns on Main Street. So, and they're looking to get it done before Giant Celebration starts, so it's all kind of timely.
Yeah, they're a great group. So, yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
The only other thing I wanted to throw out there was we are opening our small town grant round again. That's going to be opening in August. It's a $10,000 grant for smaller communities in our region. And the focus of that is really just how do you want to engage your community? What's going to have long-term impact? It's pretty open, so keep an eye out for that. Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
You have yourself a great evening.
Yes, thank you. You too.
Okay, next thing on the docket is the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and have been made available to the City Council at least 2 days in advance of the meeting. The items will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the agenda and considered in normal sequence. On tonight's docket, we have 3 items: the City Council minutes for May 28th, 2019, resolution approving disbursements through June 10th, 2019, and a non-enclosed premise license for the bar. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Public comment provides an opportunity for the public to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Persons wishing to make a comment must sign up in advance of the meeting on the sheet provided and identify themselves by providing a name and an address. We had nobody sign up tonight. Is there anybody out there that would like to address City Council? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and close the public comment portion of the meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. We have no public hearings tonight. We'll now move on to our regular agenda.
This is the one.
Yeah, it's going to be adulted. So the first item on the docket is 8 Alpha, which is the 2018 audit presentation and adoption.
Thank you very much. My name is Andrew Grice. I'm here from Bergen KDV. I'm an audit manager, here to present the 2018 audit results. First, just want to go over the responsibilities of us as your auditor and then the responsibilities of management. It is management's responsibility to prepare the financial statements. It's our job as your auditor to come in and express an opinion on those financial statements, and that we do that by testing and examining the balances and activity that took place at the city. Happy to report that the city is receiving an unmodified or clean opinion, which is the best opinion that we can offer. It does provide assurance that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. We also issue a report on government auditing standards where it does have some consideration on compliance, and we did not have any material compliance findings to report here. But we also report on internal control and do have 3 internal control findings. There were material audit adjustments that were proposed during our audit. We also had a finding related to improving the utility billing process, and also had a finding related to lack of segregation of accounting duties. We also were required to report on compliance with Minnesota state statutes. The Office of the State Auditor has 7 categories that we are required to look at, and just had 1 finding related to supporting documentation for disbursements. Next, we'd like to go into some of our financial analysis, and first we'd like to take a look at the general fund budget performance. Before the 2018 fiscal year began, City Council adopted a budget which called for revenue of $2.4 million, expenditures at $2.9 million. After factoring in net transfers budgeted at $552,000, it was a balanced budget with no change in fund balance anticipated. Actual results had revenues coming in at $2.6 million, which is $181,000 higher than anticipated. This is driven by intergovernmental revenues and investment earnings. Actual expenditures came in at $3.1 million, $140,000 over budget. This mostly occurred in streets and highways, and we'll look at that a little bit further in some following slides. But in the end, fund balance increased by $53,000 during the year. The next graph shows the general fund operations for the last 5 years, including the fund balance and the fund balance ratio at the end of the year. Revenues did increase $270,000 from 2017 to 2018. This is the result of an increase in LGA, transfers, and levy. Total expenditures increased $335,000. This was due to several reasons, one being a building official that was added, severance payouts, some street maintenance materials and supplies, and also some repairs and maintenance costs. At the end of the year, fund balance ended at $1,310,000, which represented 42.5% of expenditures. It is the city's policy to maintain a minimum fund balance of 40% of annual expenditures, so getting it a little bit closer to that minimum fund balance percentage. The next chart shows a pie chart of general fund revenues for the year. The categories here did remain consistent from year to year. However, there was a little bit of an increase in other revenues. Was at 4% last year, up to 8% here in 2018. That was a result of some lots sold by the city during the year. Also, property taxes did increase a little bit in 2018, but the city does rely on intergovernmental revenues, specifically LGA, which does make up the largest portion of revenues at 46%. The next chart shows the general fund revenues budget to actual results. And overall, actual revenue received exceeded the final budget by $181,000 or 7.6%. The main driver here was intergovernmental revenues, with the city not budgeting for the HRA portion of revenues. Other revenues were out over budget by $113,000, and that was due to the city not budgeting for some grant activity during the year. The next chart shows general fund expenditures at the city, with the largest portion being public safety expenditures at 35%, or $1,075,000. There was a new building official in 2018, which did cause a little bit of an increase there. Also, general government was higher than past years due to some server maintenance and also some severance payments in 2018. Next is general fund expenditures budget to actual results. For 2018, expenditures of $3,086,000 were over budget by $140,000 or 4.8%. The main area where this occurred was in streets and highways, which was $120,000 over budget. Again, relates to severance payments, street supplies, and some repairs and maintenance costs that were not budgeted for. The next chart shows tax capacity, levy, and rates. And during 2018, the tax capacity decreased slightly, about 1.1% or $32,000, while the certified tax levy increased 12% or $268,000. And due to the tax capacity going down and the levy going up, the city tax rate did increase from 76.7% to 78.8% in 2018. Next, we'll look at the utility funds. Here's the water utility fund for the past 5 years. And the water fund is doing well. After a low point in 2016, where we had an unrestricted net position of $55,000, there was a response to that by increasing rates. And in 2018, operating revenues increased $248,000, generated an operating income of $535,000, and improved its unrestricted net position by $502,000 in 2018. The sewer utility fund had a bit of a challenging year, had an operating income decreased $33,000. Operating revenue specifically decreased $294,000. This is attributable to consumption. Also contributing to the operating expense decrease was some adjustments during the year. All in all, cash flow from operating activities came in at about $920,000 during the year. However, debt service requirements total about $1.3 million, which is the reason for the unrestricted net position decreasing from $958,000 to just over $1.4 million in 2018. Would recommend that the City Council continue to review activities in this fund and adjust rates accordingly to address the decrease in unrestricted net position. Next is the electric utility fund. Also had a decrease in 2018 in unrestricted net position, going down from $1.3 million in 2017 to just over $500,000 in 2018. The operating revenues decreased $465,000. This is due to larger time of use adjustments in 2018 and also a change in the cutoff of meter reads. And again, unrestricted net position decreased about $770,000, including transfers out of $505,000. That's the summary of the utility funds, and now I'd just like to open it up for any questions.
Anybody on city council have anything? I am curious about the 78% with the water.
As far as the billing to, yeah, we are too.
Yeah, I think last year we were like at 89, 90%, now we're at 78%, and I think we've tried to do the right thing. Do you have any ideas from a financial standpoint in regards to what we might be able to do?
We do feel like the utility billing system itself, we've found some inconsistencies, some errors in how some certain bills are being generated. The meter reads, I'm not sure if there's something going on with those. I think those were improved during the year, but as far as how the utility billing system is responding to that change, I'm not sure that everything is getting captured appropriately. We would recommend some further investment into why that's occurring, and hopefully any improvements that can be made on the system side will help to ensure that you have a complete billing recorded in your financials.
And to be clear, we want to keep that number at 90% or better.
That is what the American Water Works Association recommends.
How much will this December billing change, how much of that was part of the $772,000
I
change?
think it was just over $200,000. So because of that change in cutoff, it did throw off your comparisons from year to year, but as long as that change in cutoff is consistent going forward, you should have some better comparability numbers, but that cutoff of the meter reads did change in 2018, which is skewing the numbers a little bit.
In regards to tax capacity, the levy and the rates,
Yes.
we're at 78.75%, about 2% higher than we were the year before.
Right.
What is a good guideline to have that percentage at?
It really varies significantly from city to city, and it goes back to the makeup of your revenue streams. You are very reliant on LGA, and it's dependent on the properties that you have within the city as well. And where some other cities, we've actually continued to see tax capacity increase, market values within the cities increase. This particular city actually had a little bit of a decrease in total tax capacity, which did create some challenges for the tax capacity rate there.
Anybody else have anything?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Administrator approval?
If I may, what we're looking for, as far as action goes, is just to receive and accept the financial audit that, Bergen KDB provided. And if you do have any questions and you start looking through your communication letters, your audit, financial statements, feel free to ask. Zach and I would sit down with any of you. If the city council's taken action to address the utility billing, I've spoken about it in the past about how certain things aren't matching up. One thing we did, and you've seen it in the disbursements, is we brought in Tyler, the utility billing vendor, to look at our system, and we actually think it maybe messed things up a little bit more just because of the way it's set up. So that's why, again, we recommended going with another vendor. So I feel Zach and I are fairly confident that moving forward in that direction will help address that gallons pumped versus gallons billed. It's very odd the way we were making very good progress in 2017 and then it fell back off. So something's going on, but we'll continue to work on it.
Well, just to be clear, just to make sure I understand this now, we have the ability to determine how many gallons of water we're actually pumping and how much is actually being charged to our customers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, to me, it seems as though either there's something wrong with the billing, as you alluded to, or is there a potential for possibly a leak somewhere where we're losing water?
There is. So we've conducted numerous leak studies internally to try to find these, and we found a few residential services that had leaks on them. So what that means is that going from the water main to the house, what is controlled by the owner, it's actually behind the meter. So it's before it gets metered at the house, but it's leaking between the main and the house. So we've done numerous leak studies, and we found leaks that are occurring in that area, but that hasn't addressed the larger 22% gap.
Right.
So we've looked at it. We've come to the determination it's something in utility billing, likely, with either the way that the meters are set up or the way that they're recognized when they're read. We've run into multiple multiplier issues between the meters depending on the meter size. There's a multiplier within the utility billing software that multiplies the amount of usage. We found those things, and as we find them, we fix them. And generally people aren't too excited about it because they've been getting a lower multiplier than what they should have been. But in all fairness, it's something that we're locating and we're fixing. So, Zach and Sally do a good job of going through that and looking at it, but there's something else going on too.
Well, it also is decreasing our income on the sewer side, because with regular meters, not special ones for water and outside, etc., we should be calculating how much comes correctly, so our sewer billing is also correct. So there's something needs to be looked into. I take it, Jasper, in simple terms, you and your staff are looking into this. Is that a fair statement?
We have been, and since 2017, I think it's almost monthly. There's changes, things that are found that are fixed, but they're not impacting the system like we think they should be. So there's either something else going on. We have to look at some of our larger users, consumers of water, and look at. We've looked at those, but I don't know. I think it's something in the software is what we're guessing, and just the way that it's linked up with our financial software, general ledger software, and the way that if things are modified in one way, they modify in another way in a different part of the software. So it's really something Zach's stepping up here to maybe talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it's a frustrating issue for us staff overall, but I think the biggest thing is how Tyler's set up. So how Tyler works and how our overall system works right now is everything's set up on the back end of things to make it so that you can't really see how things are calculated. They're just set up and done. So when you run a bill or run something, it calculates on 4 or 5 different either rate codes or use codes, fee codes. Everything's set up behind the scenes so that when you run something, it's a click easy run button, but it does something in the backside. Well, if you change something in the backside, it doesn't just change one thing, it changes everything that's linked to it. So even if we change one thing that's over here, that multiplier on another meter might be still linked to this code, and then we change it to fix this one, and we mess another one up, or we mess 2 up to try to fix that one. So that's the issue that we're running into, is that Sally and I will do audits or something when we're running those meter readings or whatever, and then we change one thing on a fee code or a rate code or a use code, and then it fixes it, messes up something else, and then we find that one the next month, and we got to fix it again, and kind of. Then what we're ending up doing is manually adjusting all 2,500 accounts we have, or 2,000 accounts we have on the system. We're manually adjusting each one of them to try to make them work on the current system. So that's the big push of why we needed that utility billing software, is to basically get a fresh start and get fresh eyes and say, this is what our fees are. Please, let's set them up like that so that they're correct.
So with the new billing software, are the analytics pretty easy to go ahead and spot, or we're gonna have the same types of problems with the new software as we've had with Tyler?
Correct. What we're doing with the new software is we're having them basically grab the raw data and recalculate it in their system and say, this is what we want it to do. So they're basically analyzing and auditing the new stuff that we're bringing over from the Tyler system, which is exactly what we want to do. But we just, you can only go through so many accounts at one time without causing bills to be a week or 2 late.
Okay, but is it, with the new software, I'm guessing that we're gonna have the ability to do a monthly reconciliation so we can determine on month 1 if we're starting to run into a problem with this going below the 90% level?
You got it. So this new software is specifically basically geared to utility billing, and we're able to run, reports much easier. Rich is able to see the billing to pump ratio much quicker than we can in this Tyler system, which is just, it's not made for us. It's basically a generic city who has water and sewer and doesn't have all this other stuff that we have going on with sewer, which is kind of why we're an outlier in this system. And in the NISC system, which we're going to, that's kind of what we're geared towards, is we're a little more complex than most cities. So I'm very confident in the new software and helping this out, and overall I'm hoping it helps out everybody so that we can lower those rates to get them back to where we think we want them to be, and not just raise them every time because our revenues keep going down and we don't have an answer why. It just keeps going down, so we have to respond back to it.
Well, I appreciate that, Director Down. And City Administrator Krugel, maybe for the benefit of our consumers out there, our citizens, perhaps talk a little bit about what the implementation of the new meters and with the new software and how that's all going to work, and timeline perhaps, and maybe you can also talk a little bit about what a customer could look for as far as a potential anomaly and what they could do to go ahead and get the word to City Hall to get it reported, if you would, sir.
Yeah, so first thing I'll talk about, because it's the first thing that the consumer will see, is the meter swap out. We're queuing up to get that done here in August and September. So the first thing that'll happen is your water meters will get swapped out, and there will be, you can either call into this, basically it's all third-party vendor that's doing this. There will be a web portal that you can go in and schedule when this works best for you. You can call in to the actual vendor, or you can call into the city and we can get it scheduled for you. So once those are swapped out, that'll help us getting the real-time system, the AMI system that we're talking about implementing. That should be fully implemented by the end of this year. The NISC implementation is a little bit longer right now. That timeline, based on the approval at the last meeting, they're saying February 1st for when that we can do that. Zach and I are going to try to get that done by the beginning of the year. So it's intensive as far as what our staff is going to be doing as far as getting it rolled out. So we're gonna because in I think everybody's opinion, every day that we have a system that we're not billing out as much as we should be, we're losing money, and that's something that we need to really address. So the NISC system, that'll be hopefully by the beginning of the year, or maybe February 1st, something like that. So, and the big thing, once the meters are actually installed, the customer will have the ability to go into the meter portal and look at and set up alerts for anomalies like what you mentioned. You'll be able to do that through that portal. If you want to do it through our NISC, the utility billing portal, you'll have to wait until that February. The census portal, the meter portal, you can set it up to be unit-based versus if you do the NISC, it has to be dollar-based. So you can say, well, my normal bill is $50 a month for water. Once I hit that $50 mark, I want to get an alert sent to my phone, to my email. I think they can even set up phone calls so that it calls you to whatever phone number you want. So, and you can set that up for each one of the utility segments that we have: water, wastewater, electric. Stormwater's pretty static. It's linear throughout the year. So you'll be able to do that, and staff will be here to help support any customers that want to get that set up. That might not be something for all customers, but there are some that are on budget billing that we'll be able to do. That's another thing that the software will allow us to do, is do budget billing as well. So let's say you have your average sewer bill or water bill or utility bill is $200 a month, $2,400 a year. We can do that and set it up in the system so you get $200 a month, where maybe you don't use as much in the summer and you use more in the winter. It's electric companies do this, gas companies do this quite a bit. So it's something that we'll be able to offer our customers as well. So there'll be a lot more options, and we'll be as helpful as we can be to get customers that are interested in it up to speed as far as how to get the system set up.
Okay. One follow-up question. Are there any visual or physical signs that our consumers can be looking for to perhaps notice if there's water escaping somewhere within their property?
Yeah, it's the things like listen for your toilet running, listen for faucets dripping, listen for outdoor irrigation running when you don't have it on. If you have irrigation, you can sometimes hear that from your basement if your irrigation system has a leak or something like that. Those are the major things that we see that happen that people don't know about, that they could potentially find out in the interim. As a stopgap, they can look for that type of thing. They always should. You can put dye tablets in your toilets and see if that dye tablet leaks into your toilet bowl throughout the day, and if they do, you probably have some leaky seals or something like that in your toilet. And just those little things, they add up pretty quickly as far as a consumer goes, especially if you're only using 2,000 gallons of water per day and your toilet's leaking, or 2,000 gallons per month and your toilet's leaking 50 gallons a day. That adds up really quickly.
Can I?
Please.
With regard to a legal perspective on this, what I hear when you're talking about it is that potentially there's a problem with the billing software. So I think it probably would be worth looking into a little bit and having a discussion on how can we pinpoint what the problems are with the software, and then reviewing the software agreement that you had in place with that, and see if there's any potential recovery from them. If you're really losing 20% billing on this every year, that's a big problem. And for such a small city, I think we could look at ways to, or if there's any recourse there.
Well, thank you for volunteering that. I'm sure that our city administrator will be in touch with you probably as soon as tomorrow.
Yeah, we can look at that. We think it's the software. We don't have we can't pinpoint it exactly
Right.
what's going on.
And I think what we can do too is a little bit of research and see if there's been any other complaints with this software.
Thank you so much for that, Kimberly. Appreciate that. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as I'm looking at the utility fund and a loss of 740,000 plus, I would suggest giving myself, the mayor, and Councilmember Fabulous a little work and referring that to personnel and budget to look into further. We're not going to solve that tonight, but I think this requires us to take some time. So I would suggest that. I don't think we need a motion. I just would think it would be a prudent thing to do.
Right. We'll be starting that cycle sometime this month or July.
Yeah, Zach is actually, I think, preparing or has prepared the preliminary budget document that staff's gonna start looking at here shortly, and then July is really when it starts to look at it. As a reminder, we have to have our preliminary levy adopted by September 30th, so that first meeting in September, I believe it's September 9th, City Council will review it. So basically between when staff sets the proposed budget and September 9th, there'll be a series of personnel and budget committee meetings at that time to look at everything.
Okay. Councilmember Sullivan, you got something?
No.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'm ready to make a motion.
One more question, if I may. Mr. Grice, with what you've discovered through the audit process and what you've heard our Director of Finance and our city staff talk about in regards to some of the things we're looking at and what City Council's obviously willing to go ahead and tackle, you feel rather comfortable that we're making the right steps moving forward?
I do. I think those are all very good steps. Is there any discussion on rates specifically in the electric fund? They seem to be low. Is that something that would be on the table as well?
City Administrator.
Yes, definitely. So we've looked at, and one thing that we're looking at potentially proposing in the budget is doing a cost of service study for electric, water, wastewater in 2020. We can easily do a comparison in our region. We have that data right now that we can look at what regionally how we're doing, but as far as our rates go with our members that are in a cooperative, we do have the lowest rates for electric in MMPA. So, there's a benefit to that, that might stem some economic development, in particular with some of our larger industrial users. It's attractive to them, so we'll definitely look at it. One thing that likely accounted for some of the revenue discrepancies is, and I think personnel and budget, if you remember, our demand charges in the summer were actually below what we were being charged by MMPA. We've made that adjustment in 2019 up to what it is to equal. It's actually, I think, a penny more. And then in 2020, what the proposal is to add that 10% overhead onto that demand charge as well. So that'll help make sure that we're not actually losing money on that one charge, which can add up pretty quickly with our industrial users. So we've already, in my opinion, we've addressed some of the issues that I think are out there. The one wild card is the utility billing that we're going to do, but we can definitely look at rates. But I know that when personnel and budget have looked at rates for electric, the main comparison that we do is Minnesota Valley Electric Cooperative for residential customers, and we're just slightly below them. So we can keep looking at that, but if we have a need in the fund, we can also make those adjustments.
Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to receive and accept the 2018 financial audit performed by Bergen KDV.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you too, Director Dodd.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the docket is Technopac final payment for sewer service. City Administrator approval.
Mayor, Hague, members of City Council, this is a project that dates back to 2005, when it was originally conceived by city staff and City Council, the EDA at that time. In general, from what my understanding is that the idea, we typically as a city don't do private service construction for businesses that don't serve the public need. From what my understanding is that this was an assurance given to Technopac. If you remember back in, I believe, 2016, originally there was Mark Steele, who is the president and CEO of Technopac, came in during a work session. We talked about this. And I've done research with in old email accounts to try to figure out what exactly was assured of Technopac during that time period. As you can imagine, going back, well, now it's 14 years. Some of that stuff is spotty at best, but in general, what we found and what the direction was from City Council was to proceed and get this done. Now, the original design that was proposed in 2005 did not take into account a couple things. The fall that's necessary to actually complete the system, By fall, I mean you need to have, I believe it's 1 or 2% fall from the building to the manhole that the waste goes into. That wasn't feasible with the manhole that was originally proposed to be connected to. So what ended up having to happen was this line was extended down Forest Prairie Road about, I want to say 120 feet, and then their service line from their building was connected into that. We did have to do some wetland work as well, so if you've been up in that area of Forest Prairie Road and Cambria Avenue, we had to get a permit to disturb that wetland. We had to do that. That was an unforeseen cost too. So some might look at the original idea was around $50,000. We were going off 2005-ish numbers, somewhere around there. There was never really an actual engineer's estimate or estimate done, quotes done for this. So we were kind of hoping that it would come in at 50, but with a couple of these changes, I guess it makes sense that it bumped up to about 73,000, a little bit over. So the one thing that we did do that does have a public benefit is that we did extend the sewer down Forest Prairie. So there's another manhole that's public infrastructure on there. So we did extend that a little bit down Forest Prairie Road. But what this essentially does, and there's two parts to this, is one, to authorize this payment. Now this payment will actually go to Technopac. So Technopac, and we wanted to make sure that it was very clear that the contractor was performing the work for Technopac and not for the city. So Javens Mechanical, you'll see the invoices in here, but that's just for reference to confirm that they did the work. And if this is approved, what we will do is we would cut a check to Technopac. So in our disbursements, in our general ledger report, if anybody needs to go back in time and look at this, it'll say, well, we'll look up Technopac because that's the business, and there will be a record there for the future, so that people know what happened here. And these invoices that you see in the packet will be part of that general ledger document, because like everything that happens, a long time ago, documentation is something that we want to make sure is preserved so that future city councils can look at this and say, well, what was this for? How did we do this? Because the second part of this agenda item is the memo of understanding that you'll see in here. And what that does is it just clarifies what the city code currently is, that any property owns their service that goes from the water main to their building. I wanted to make sure that was clear to Technopac, which they've said it's clear that after this project they will own it. But the fact that the city paid for both the water and the sewer services, I didn't want there to be any question if there was some sort of issue with the craftsmanship or construction of it, that in the future they would come to the city and say, we want this done because this happened in the city. This is the city's. And we wanted it to be very clear. We wanted it to be documented. So that's also part of this packet. In the packet or in here, you can see it's kind of hard. This is an engineered drawing, but you can basically look at what the profile is and the location of this. It could be a little difficult, but if you go out there, you can see exactly where the construction is right now. So that's essentially it. We're closing out this project with Technopac. That's from 2015. It came in above budget, but we're going to use what we have for reserves as far as our contingency budget goes in 2019. It's good to have this finalized. This is something that Mark Steele isn't here right now, but he's happy that it's done. It is another customer on the system. I know City Council has asked, well, what's the return on investment for something like this? Well, it's hard to put a number to this, just straight numbers. They don't use a lot of water in processing, so it's quite some time. The one thing that is intangible is the economic benefit that we've seen by, to me, this likely helped facilitate the ease of Cambria's expansion up there, with Cambria Avenue being put in, and Technopac had to switch their address and do a couple other things out there. So, there's intangibles that we don't see associated with this, with economic development. So it's difficult to see, but yeah, if we would look at just straight water sewer bill versus how much this costs, the ROI is quite some time, 30 some years. So that's all I have for for presentation. You'll see the 2 invoices in there, and the memo of understanding what we're looking for. You can either do it in one motion, or 2 is approving the expenditure of $73,162 to Technopac for the completion of the extension and connection of the sanitary sewer. And then a second motion to approve staff to authorize or sign that memo of understanding between the 2 entities.
And I think, just to be clear, we will do it in 2. Any questions or concerns for our city administrator regarding the Technopac situation?
I apologize for not raising this sooner, but it strikes me that this memorandum of understanding is kind of weak. Okay, it doesn't say what happened. It doesn't say that the X amount of dollars were expended. It doesn't have any background. It doesn't close the file, so to speak. One of the issues we had was there was no documentation to start with, and this doesn't fully do that. I would suggest that we do it via a receipt and basically approve what we have here today, but further go on. And when they receive this check, before they get it, we have a receipt that says this is what it's for, and it closes the case. Because this has been going on far too long. And we need to really loop this thing closed. So that would be my recommendation, but I don't want to stop it tonight.
Right.
I hope that's clear.
Well, it makes sense. Anybody else have anything? I guess my final question before we get on to the vote. This totally closes the file now for Technopac. We're not going to be seeing any other additional invoices moving forward.
Correct, yeah, and this has been something we've been waiting on final acceptance of the system and for them to actually get hooked up to our city water too, because that was another stipulation to this being finalized, is that they're hooked up to our water and our sewer. So there will be no additional expenditures once this is, or if this is approved.
Okay, so they're now currently into the billing system now.
They are.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're gonna treat this as 2 motions. I'll go ahead and accept a motion to approve the payment of invoice 42794 and 43598 for $73,162 to Technopac for the completion of extension and connection of the sanitary sewer.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion is carried. The second motion I'm looking for now is to go ahead and, using the language that Councilmember Krogman has suggested for our memorandum of understanding, we go ahead and beef that up a little bit. We're not going to delay it tonight. That'll be done by staff, and it'll be presented when the check is presented to Technopac. So with that said, can I get a motion to authorize to sign the memorandum of understanding?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Good job, finally, that one's off the docket. Okay, give you a minute here to make whatever notes you need to make, and we'll move on.
Yep.
You all set? Next item on the docket is 8 Charlie. It's the Kinetic Leasing Capital Lease Items Approval, City Administrator approval.
Mayor Haig, members of City Council, before you is a capital lease item for our Kinetic Lease program that we have. What we have is a generator for City Hall and the police station. You'll see outside, if you look on the south side of the building, there's a new generator out there. It was a timely installation, as about an hour after it was live and tested, we had a power outage in the area, and that generator ran for about 2.5 hours, powering City Hall at least. So it was interesting and also confusing at the time, because we thought maybe it was a test for the generator, but it turned out it was a pretty large outage that occurred over on Swan Street by Stoop. So yeah, it was interesting. So it was timely. The reason why this is an important investment for the city's infrastructure is that our servers are now housed here at City Hall. In order for us to access our network, even if, let's say, fiber gets cut, we can still access our network, save files if that generator's running. So it's an important investment. It also is important for our police service to make sure that they have power and they're up and running as well. So the system that we had there, a little history about the previous one, it was a former wastewater treatment pond generator that had over 7,000 hours on it. It was running for basically, I think, almost a year straight to power the aerators at the old wastewater pond. So it was a reused item. So it was something we've gotten some very good life out of. So this will be a good addition. And yeah, we're looking for approval, a motion approving the submission of payment request form for this item.
Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the execution of the payment request forms attached to this agenda item dispersed to our vendor, Kinetic Leasing Incorporated.
So moved.
And that, by the way, that is for $22,486. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. We now move on to line item 8 Delta, which is the add-on, and this is an approval of non-enclosed premises license for Max Green Mill Bar. City Administrator Rule.
Mayor Hague, members of the City Council, this is very similar to the application that was approved in the consent agenda for the bar. We ended up getting this past the Thursday deadline, so this is just essentially us approving the same thing that was approved for the bar for Max Green Mill Bar to occupy that public space adjacent to their premises.
Any questions? Entertain a motion to approve the non-enclosed premises license for Max Green Mill Bar.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, so now we're into our comments, reports, and items of appreciation portion. This is an opportunity for City Council members to give us updates in regards to various meetings, committees, or basically give us a report on what's been going on since our last council meeting, bring us up to speed in regards to anything that's coming up that they might be involved with, and to also get some feedback from our city administrator in regards to what's been going on and what's coming up. So with that said, I'll go ahead and start with Councilmember Sullivan tonight.
The only thing I have to note tonight is we had a MRPA meeting Thursday after our last meeting 2 weeks ago now. We did go ahead and approve to continue on with our current rates for another 2 months until Springside gets their study back to us on our rate structure. So that's all I have tonight.
Okay. Current rates for 2 months, you said?
Yep.
Okay. Councilmember Croton.
The Planning Commission met last week in a special meeting, went over the zoning code in quite detail. Next Thursday of this week, they will meet and hopefully approve all of that to present to you for your pleasure reading this summer. You will have many, many pages to read. I urge you to look at it carefully. They're making some judgment calls that they think are best for the community. They're doing an excellent job, but you'll want to look at it carefully to know what its implications are. One of the things that will happen is there'll be a revised zoning map, and I'm going to highlight this now. We need to make sure that somehow we incorporate that, in my opinion, into the comp plan and get rid of what's in the comp plan so that the comp plan doesn't trump our new zoning map. If that makes any sense. We got to go from work, play, live, or whatever it is, to R's and B's and whatever else the number system will be. But they have done an excellent job. Our consultant staff, what do you call it, a person we use as a staff member for that purpose has done a lot of work. So it's coming, and it's well overdue, and I thank our staff for pushing that because they recognized it and brought it to the attention of this council. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Huntington.
No, Mayor, I have nothing.
Okay. About anything from our city attorney's desk? Kimberly, anything?
Not anything else.
Okay. About from our city clerk? Stacy, anything tonight?
No, thanks.
Okay. City Administrator approval.
Yeah, I would just want to talk a little bit about, there was an article in the paper about our tap sidewalk project and giving a little update on that, and there's maybe a little confusion about who's funding what, and I just wanted to add some clarification to that. In the article, it talks about the county's participation in the actual, the sidewalk project, and to some that maybe, I don't know, wasn't apparent, but there is a county road that this sidewalk project is on, so, what is it? 4th Street, I believe, is County Road 37, technically. And in that area, what the agreement, and if you look back to the actual grant application, it's a joint application between the county and the city because there are county roads on there. But what that means is that the county is agreed to participate in the construction of those sidewalks on that stretch of road, so County Road 37. And what that means is that anything above and beyond what the grant will cover, that means that the county will cover that difference. Now, we hope that that number is very small because it's a grant, and there was roughly a 20% contribution in the grant application. That was what the estimate was. So just to clarify, the TAP Sidewalk project, the Transportation Alternatives Program project, for those 31 blocks of sidewalk in town here, it is a joint project between the county and the city.
Is that only the stretch between Ferry and Bridge on 4th Street?
Yes.
Okay.
Or no, let me clarify that. It goes all the way down 4th Street. So,
Interesting.
yep. So it continues on 4th Street. So I believe I'd have to look at a county map. I don't know their county numbers. But that section that you're looking at right now between Bridge and Ferry on 4th Street is actually state highway, or it's turned back to county road. But if you go to the north, that's actually county road as well.
And what about the I think they're calling it a path, not a sidewalk. Maybe it is considered a sidewalk along what currently is 112, along what now we call Elmwood. Is the county paying for all of that?
Yeah, so the section I believe you're talking about, Councilman Krogman, is it would be south of Ferry Street, and it would be on Elmwood Street, and it would be basically the area from that intersection of Elmwood and Ferry up to Caucus. And what the county state aid standard section has in it is 2 5-foot walks on both sides of the road. Now, and referring back to what the Turnback Project means, is that the county's received monies to rehabilitate that surface of that area. Now, the city's on the hook if there's any utilities that we happen to need to replace in that area as well. But the surface in the county road, or the county state aid section is 2 sidewalks, and then I'm not sure exactly what the lane configuration is. One thing that we've tried to push from the county standpoint, because there is a 8-foot bituminous or asphalt trail that's proposed to go from Caucus to 115 on the east side of 112 right now. What we proposed was having that 8-foot bituminous trail start at that Elmwood intersection and go through there, and then because I know we've gotten a lot of feedback about adding sidewalks to that area, and then residents having to maintain those per our city code, because right now there currently aren't sidewalks. And what this bituminous trail would do is the homeowners or the property owners wouldn't maintain it. That would be something that the city would remove snow and ice from. The county, from the county state standpoint, that's what the recommendations are as far as county state aid road sections. I think that's where we're headed, is for two sidewalks on that stretch of road because of the county state aid section.
But one would be wider than the other?
No, they would both be 5 feet from what I understand.
Which means the homeowners would be responsible for snow removal.
Correct. Yeah. So, and if we would put an 8-foot bituminous trail, which would be more conducive to bike traffic and great separation between, bike traffic and the roadway, that would be something that we would add to our trail network, and that would be something that the city would then remove snow on.
Okay. So we're not there yet.
We're not there yet, and we're still talking about it. Staff internally is talking about it. We have a meeting set up with the county to try to talk to them about it a little bit more, but they're getting to the point where we need to get plans finalized and set so that we can follow our bidding guideline process and timeline. So that's where we're at with that. Either way, we don't have any ordinances against people riding bikes on sidewalks. My major concern is the maintenance, basically the snow removal of those, because there's quite a few properties on that stretch that know that they currently don't have to remove snow, and as soon as that sidewalk's put in, they would be required to.
I may not be popular with people on the west side, I think you mentioned, by mentioning this, but is there any opportunity to not have a sidewalk on each side, but put an 8-foot on the west side and have the county pay for the whole thing?
That's an interesting idea. So we could look into that.
I mean, what it would do, if you're looking at a trail system, you're going to hopefully do it in the future anyway. It may be a way to mitigate the cost for the city. We certainly would pick up the expense of snow removal, but it wouldn't be that difficult on that length with that width.
Right.
So,
Oh, correct. I mean, we have equipment that can remove snow on that pretty easily. It's basically it's coming down to what the county state aid section is,
Yeah.
what the county is recommending to be done in that area. Now, if you feel strongly about that, there was an open house on June 4th, and there were a lot of comment cards that were filled out. I haven't seen the results of those yet, but likely, from what I understand, there were a lot of comments about sidewalk in that section. So I'm guessing that the comment cards will reflect that. Now, from the staff standpoint, what we would like to see is that 8-foot trail starting at Elmwood and going all the way out to 115 and the County Road 115. That would be more conducive. It'd be better for if we have a trail network plan at some point in time, because anytime you start directing bicycles to use a roadway, there's potential for it's just not as safe as a grade separated trail. So we're going to continue to push. I'll be honest, not real optimistic that we'll be able to get that done at this point. But if there's a strong opinion from City Council, please reach out to me, and I can kind of use that as some guidance.
You got anything else?
Yeah, so just a couple things about meetings. We have an RPAC, Recreation and Park Advisory Committee meeting tomorrow night. I will be attending that one. I've been doing a little bit of legwork looking at getting a pickleball court out at the outdoor ice rink and seeing what those costs were and proposing that. Likely what the recommendation is to RPAC is to basically put down pickleball court lines with tape and bring in some temporary nets and see if it works and see if the group that plays pickleball outdoors likes it. And if they do, that's something that we can bring to the Personnel and Budget Committee and go out potentially for some donations and things like that for, I think it's potentially 4 outdoor pickleball courts in that area. So the outdoor ice rink sets up really nice to have 4 full courts in it. So RPAC will look at that. If there's a recommendation, we'll bring that up to City Council at a future date. We do have, as Councilmember Krogman alluded to, there's a Planning Commission meeting on Thursday. I will be attending that as well for Samantha. She's out of town for a conference up in Duluth. So I will be at that meeting with, I believe Nate will be there as well. We are holding a public hearing on the zoning code amendments at that time. There's another public hearing for a CUP that would also go to City Council if that is approved or recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. At that time, that CUP is for conditional use permit is for a larger shed to be built up in an R1 area. So we'll be looking at that. The idea, if we can get to where we need to be as far as the public hearing and the input from the Planning Commission, as early as June 24th, there could be an ordinance and a first reading of that ordinance for the planning code update. And to echo what Council Member Krogman said about amending the comprehensive plan, once this planning or zoning code amendment is passed, it'll eventually get refined enough where it's passed. That's the next step, is to amend the comprehensive plan and make it a little bit easier for a board like the Planning Commission to look at and use and make recommendations or findings of fact for. So that is the plan to make those amendments to the comp plan. And then another reminder, on the 17th of June, Monday, a week from today, we have a meeting that's planned and scheduled with the school district to have a joint meeting with the city council here in the city council chambers at 6:30. We're going to be talking about housing, things that the city has going on for housing. We're going to be talking about the referendum, the community survey that's been sent out to community members here in Sueur and the school district, and then a few other items that are posted on the agenda. So, just in general, it's good to collaborate and make sure everybody's on the same page. They have quite a few new members on their board, so for our city council to meet them, get to know them. I'm sure a lot of you already do, but I think there were four new members on that board this year, so they had a lot of change as well. So yeah, that's on the 17th at 6:30. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great week.
Are you going there? 20 days? Yep, for like this week.